Well, look at me showing my face like a real streamer now. So, I just thought I'd just come back and just do some more work. Hey, why not? We're starting to get close to something here, and it would seem a shame just to like get up partway through it and then just stop. So I'm just gonna forge ahead, if you're pardon the pun. Oh gosh, it's getting a little bit late, getting a bit crazy. I needed some sugar. Can I change my main camera? Woo! Here we go. I needed some sugar, so like I made this like little rice pudding thing. I'm finding it difficult to like find sugary stuff in the house now because I just don't buy it anymore. Otherwise, I eat it, but always find ways to get sugar into me anyway. So, all right. So let's come back here. I see where we're up to. So I got the API working now, and next thing I want to do is basically push on with the whole storage concept. Make sure that I'm covering it right. So let's imagine that I wanted to switch to local storage here. So the way I'm doing it here, we're calling fetch, and it's adding to-do list. It's getting all of the to-do list via the API at the moment. So if I were to comment that out and comment this out, I should easily be able to basically recreate my fetch and my create commands. And if I can recreate them easily, then that means that I will be able to easily create an application that other users can implement. What am I talking about? Sorry, needed to burp to myself. That means that I'll easily be able to make an application that can be created with a different API down the line. So when we want to create our own API or when we want to use Firebase, we can basically rewrite this code and everything will just work. So that's the concept that I want to try and like make happen here. So how about we change this to, excuse me, I keep burping myself now that I'm eating. I want to change this to maybe something with local storage, like fetch it from local storage. I don't know, maybe I'd use like a promise there to do that. So let's say import local storage, and we're going to do that from Quasar. Pretty sure that it's got that. Yep, there it is there. So now I should be able to say here local storage dot get. And well, I guess what we want to do as well, we probably want to handcraft this API, the response to this on the front end. The problem I'm going to run into is I might then do something with this response. So I probably want to more carefully handcraft the response. So I guess we would return then there, and then I can say return here, message, or maybe something like data, which would be response.data, and then error. You know, the problem with doing it this way, though, is it's just too much extra code. All right, I'm totally going to scrap this idea. I see what I could do is I could make the API super specific, so I can then use it across like local storage, Firebase, and all the different different implementations to make it more pluggable. But this is a beginner series, and I feel like that's just overkill, so I'm actually not going to do that. So there we go. We can go ahead and scrap that idea, and I'm going to eat some of my rice pudding. Yum! Rice pudding! I'll be honest, it's not actually that delicious. Okay, so I guess the next thing I want to do is sort of figure out exactly how far I want to go with teaching storage. So we can now add something with a list by saying create list. Maybe I should also say here context dot fetching, or how about like context dot maybe state. Can I pull the state out of there? Dot fetching and set that equal to something. Can I do that directly? Or do I have to do it through a mutation? Probably supposed to do it with mutation. It just seems like overkill. Anyway, let's try it this way for now and see what happens. So we'll set fetching equal to true. And then when this is done, we're going to set fetching equal to false. Then what I should be able to do is go into the state and say fetching here is equal to false by default. So that work? Yep. And just to check that, and then I've got everything right, I'm just going to console.log the context just in case this doesn't work by default. It looks like it doesn't. So let's have a look at the context here. What are we getting? So we are getting the state. We are getting fetching. And it looks like I am actually setting that to true because originally it was false. So this is currently working. But it's giving me an error. So what is the do not mutate Vuex store state outside mutation end? Okay, so it's basically saying yes, you do need to do this in a mutation. All right, fine, I'll do it in a mutation. So let's get rid of that. And let's get rid of that. And how about we create a mutation that is context dot commit, and we'll call it set fetching. And I'm going to set fetching equal to true here. And then when it's done, we're going to set that equal to false. So let's go ahead and create that mutation. Mutations. And we'll call this set fetching. And we'll call this fetching. Then I can say state.fetching. And that is going to be equal to whether or not it is fetching. Okay, so set fetching false, set fetching true when we first do it. All right, so now we should be able to create a spinner based off of that. And honestly, fetching was probably a bad example to start with. We probably should have done it with create because that's going to take, then I can sort of like view the UI a little bit more easily. So let's come down here. We'll say set fetching equal to true. Oh, that shouldn't be set fetching. It should be creating. So set creating. And then we'll come back here to the state and we'll have fetching, and then we'll also have creating. Or, you know, honestly, we could probably get rid of both of these by saying like status, but then if you're fetching and creating at the same time, then that won't work out. Yeah, so we'll just have fetching and creating. All right, so now that we've got both of those set up, what I should be able to do is basically have a spinner here when we're fetching this for the first time. So how about we go to the main layout, which is where this is currently sitting. I think I should put that in its own component, and we'll do that at some point. To-do list. Why am I getting a little squiggly line there? You know what? I'm pretty sure that does exist. Yeah, it does. So it looks like it can't link very well with this map getters. So I'm just going to leave that. So basically, when this is fetching, so how about we say fetching to do lists, and then we'll have a getter called fetching. So let's jump into our getters here, and now we can say get, or we'll just call this fetching. State dot instead of entities dot fetching. And then we also want to be able to check whether we're creating or not. So how about we say here creating, and then we can check whether or not we've got creating on the state. So there we go. Fetching to-do lists is all I'm going to need there, and we just want to show a spinner if it is in a fetching state. So I like to style the spinner before I actually implement it. So let's go to lists. Here they are here. This is where we iterate over them. And before they show, we'll say q-item, q-item-section. I think I'll do it that way. And then q-spinner. So let's just see what that looks like. Here's our spinner. Don't really like it yet. So let's set a color equal to primary. And I'm going to make it a bit bigger. Size is equal to, how about 1.4 EM? What do we get there? Or maybe we'll use one of the official sizes like medium. Yeah, I think that's a little bit better. How about small? What does that look like? Yeah, small is a good size there. And I want this to be in the center. Maybe I can say like text center here. I don't even know what we're playing around with in terms of the layout. So let's come up here. Okay, that's a row. So I should be able to say justify center. Justify center. Oh, no, it wouldn't be item center. No, it is item center. So there we go. That's what should show when it is fetching. And now I can simply say here, v-if fetching to-do list. So let's refresh that. And there we go. We get the spinner. I think that looks really nice. Tremendous. So how about we do the same thing for creating now? So if we go to our create list button, and here it is here. Basically, when I click on create, I want to get a spinner. So let's map actions, and we can call this, actually, we don't even need to map actions. It's already going to handle the getters for us. So we just want to say map getters, and we're going to go to the to-do list namespace, and then we'll say creating to-do list. And then we can say creating is the name of the getter. Cool. All right, I'm happy with that. So we now need to make sure we're actually using that. So let's come up here and use it. And now we can see whether or not we're creating the to-do list. And if we are, we're going to change the button to a loading button and disable it as well. So we can come in here and say loading is equal to creating to-do list. And then we can also say disable if we are creating the to-do list. So let's come up here and say my new list, make it a green one. Let's give it a shopping list icon, and let's see what happens when we click create. Nothing at all. That was a complete failure. All right, so let's see if loading works if I just set it equal to true. No. No, funny enough, it doesn't. It's weird. Let's open that again. I know, it seems to be working now. Disable. Expected a boolean, got a function. Really? Creating to-do list. Alright, so that should be a getter. I don't know why I'm getting a function there. Map getters, creating to-do list. Let's come back here. Let's say getters. Alright, so we got creating is what it's called. Yeah, and I've mapped that to creating, so I don't see what the problem is there. Weird. Anyway, let's set that to true and just see if that gets rid of the error. Yeah. Alright, so let's just play around and see if we can find the solution to that. Once again, we're getting that function, so we're saying state.creating. And if I go into the state, I'm pretty sure I set that. Yep, state.creating. It's equal to false by default. And it worked on the main layout. So let's see if there's anything different on the main layout that I did. So let's go into state. What was it? Map getters. There it is there. And I've put that in computed. Oh, it looks like I might have put that in methods in create list. Let's have a look here. Yeah, I've put it in methods. Oh, Luke, you silly, silly boy. So let's say computed there, whack that in, save it, and I reckon that'll work now. Let's come back up. Sweet, other, list. Let's make it blue. Let's use the hammer, and this should show a loading symbol and disable the button. And it did not. All right, so unknown local mutation type set create. So it looks like set creating, I haven't created that mutation. So let's go to mutations. That's a really nice error. What is this module example? We don't need any of that. So let's go ahead and delete them all. Come back into mutations here. Set fetching. So I had another one called set creating. Let's come in here and say creating. And there we go. So if creating, that will that mutation should now work. And let's come back in here and add another list. Blah, 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 green, hammer, And there we go. We get the spinner, and it closes when it's done. That's really cool. Another thing I want to make sure I do is actually reset that form. And what's the best way to do that? I've never come up with a good best way to do that because I never really reset my forms. Or I do it, but I think I created a plugin ages ago that does it for me. I'm going to eat a bit of this pudding. Pudding! Yeah, yeah! Eating some pudding on a stream. I do what I want. All right, so. I want to make sure that when I click on creating, it doesn't go back to these defaults. It resets everything there. So, how about we maybe have a const here, which is like, I don't know, blank form. And we set the data for the form equal to blank form. So how about we cut that? Is this a way to do? I don't even know if this is going to work, to be honest. Bloody, I've been dealing with JavaScript for a long time, and I still don't understand a lot of its intricacies. Who does? I guess the JavaScript experts. The JavaScript experts, whoever they may be. So let's just check that it still works, and if it does, then we can try using this blank form to reset the form. So, blah, blah, blah. We'll make it blue, run that and see if it works. And it does, so that's tremendous. So the next thing I want to do is say that when this has been filled in, I want to set that blank form back to its default of like nothing. So, yeah, so when this is done, hide it, and then we can say this dot form is equal to that original blank form. And then we'll check if that works, and if it does, we can move on with our lives. So, blah, blah, blah. Let's make it green, the list one, create, and there we go. That's created it, and if I click on here, ha! So it looks like this is, man, it looks like this is actually changing blank form behind the scenes. So what's the best way to duplicate that? I guess I could say like object.assign. Is this the standard way to do it though? You could do that and just like whack it into a blank object. So then I'm not actually changing blank form here. And then I could say here, form is equal to a copy of blank form. Yeah, let's give that a try. Man, I'm going to have to create a delete button soon. That's another thing I want to do with the state in the tutorial. So let's do that. Blue, hammer, boom. Okay, so that's working now. I think this is a fine way to do it. I mean, basically, we're just replicating this blank form. Yeah, for the create list button. I don't know. If anyone can think of a better, cleaner way to do that, then let me know. But I think that's like pretty clean. This is a pretty standard way of like just copying an object. I'm gonna eat some more of this. I'm very excited because when my girlfriend comes home, she's gonna be playing this cool new game. What is blank form? So, blank form is just so this form here that is being modeled here, what I do is I say object.assign for blank form. So basically I'm making a copy of blank form. Because if I point to a directory, yeah, it's an empty structure. Exactly, there we go. You said it in one word. It's an empty structure for our form. And basically when we're done creating the list, we then set the form to a copy of that blank form. I create a method new data which returns the same thing. Yeah. Yeah. Pretty much the same thing. I guess that's another way you could do it. You could just have a method. Maybe that would be cleaner. Yeah, I don't know. Usually I use something like Vuex ORM, which has kind of methods behind the scenes that handles that for me. But anywho, let's move on. So next, I think we're going to need a delete button here, or maybe at least a way to right-click on this and delete it. And that'd be cool because it gives us a chance to do to show users how to right-click on things and then have a menu pop up that they can then press a delete button on. So let's go to the Quasar website and look for that menu component. I think it's called like menu proxy even. It's like pop-up proxy. Or Q menu. There's a way you can have a menu where you have to like right click on an area in order to show the menu. Let's have a look at the API here. Behavior. Yeah, okay, and then you just set it to context menu. Cool. So what we can actually do, check this out, guys. This is super sweet. If I come up here now and I find one of these items, where's the place where I'm iterating the items? Here it is here. What we can actually do is wrap this in a menu, or do we put the menu underneath? Let's just have a look at how it's used. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, so they've put it inside of the button, inside of the thing. So let's try that and just see what happens for the Q item. We'll say here Q-menu. And there we go. And we'll just have like Q-item. And then we'll have a Q-item-section. And we'll say blah there. Yeah, you got pop-up proxy, but you can actually do it with a menu. So I click on there. There we go. We get that menu popping up. And now what I can do, and can I click anywhere on this? Is it still going to work? Yep. What I can actually do here is I can say context menu. And that means rather than clicking on it, I have to actually right-click on it. And that's a really cool experience. So now you can do this, right? You can say, I might even make this a button. Is that going to work? Let's see what happens here. Let's have a little play, guys. Q-button. And we'll say the color of this is equal to, like, maybe red-4, something like that. Okay, so that's working. Let's give it an icon equal to MDI delete. Let's have a crack at that. Nice. We can bin it. And I might actually add a label in there so that they know what to do. Label is equal to delete. And I'm probably going to have to flatten this. Or maybe not flatten, unelevate. By the way, cool trick. If you say flat, look at what happens. Notice that I get like this white button, and the text is red. If you say unelevate, it's actually a little bit different. It deals with colors a bit differently when you say unelevated. Instead, the background is now red. All right, so the primary color remains the same. Like the way it's colored remains the same. Unelevated just gets rid of the shadow. Whereas flattening it gets rid of the shadow and it changes the way that the color is shown. So that's kind of interesting little tidbit there. So I'm going to change that back to unelevated. And we might want to have an edit button here at some point. So let's see what happens if I put another button in there. Yeah, I thought that might happen. We're going to have to make this stacked. And I probably want to get rid of the border there. So I think I can say like, have a class of no border. No dash border or no dash borders, plural. I don't know. Let's say no border. Yeah, I want to. It's the border. It's got to do with the border radius. So let's say border dash radius in the docs. No border radius. It looks like that's what it is. Yep, no border radius. Man, the docs are good. Love the Quasar docs. Save that. Nice. That's gotten rid of the border radius. So I just want to make sure that when I add another button in the future, that's going to work fine. So now that's gotten rid of the border radius, the next thing we need to do is make sure they're stacked. And, I don't know, what's the best way to do this? I might do something simple, like just put it inside of a div and then say class is equal to column. Let's have a crack at that. Yeah, that worked. Whatever, that's cool. And I actually think I like flat rather than unelevated. Yeah, it just makes the colors a bit more subtle. And then later on we'll have edit as well. So let's come down here and have a blue button, and we'll call that MDI pencil, and this one will be edit. Something like that. Yeah, and the other thing you can do is you can actually align stuff within your button as well, and we can align that to the left now, whack that in there, and so now I can just right click on here, and they're all aligned properly. But I think buttons are just a nicer experience in a menu. And there's even a button menu component, and maybe I should have used that in the end. I don't actually know, but hey, the menu component worked fine. Let's just have a look here. Q button menu. Or it's like a button drop down or something. Maybe it doesn't exist. Anyway, you guys can have a little search for that if you're interested. Yeah, but okay, next thing I want to do is make it so that button actually does something. And I think I will actually extract this to its own component. So let's change the name of this to maybe, how about delete. What are we deleting? Delete to-do list button. Copy that. If we go to our imports, we can then come down here. Whoops, accidentally copied a blank space. And now we can say delete to-do list button. There it is there. And then we can just whack it down there. And then I can say Quasar new components, delete to-do list button. We can jump into that component. And yeah, so now we want to proxy all of those styles down. So let me show you how to wrap a component. A lot of you might not actually know this. Right click on this, notice that it's not working now. All those attributes aren't doing anything because it's sitting on a div. However, look at what happens when I do this. Q-button. This actually, I'm pretty sure doesn't work. Oh no, there we go. It does work straight away. But if you want to have like the listeners as well and all that kind of stuff, you have to say v-bind adders. And that means we can use things like slots and listeners as well. Cool. All right, we got our button. Let's make it actually do something. Probably don't need we can probably leave that as self-closing. So at click equals, and let's call this delete to do. And now we're actually going to have an action for that. Whoops, come back here. We're not using setup because this is a beginner series that I'm making here. We'll say methods, and then we'll say map actions, ... to do list, I think it's called. And then we call this delete to do list is what that should actually be. It should be more specific. And we'll map that to delete. So now if we go into our actions. Oh, actually, before I do that, let's actually pull out map actions. Import map actions. And we're going to pull that out of Vuex. Vuex, whatever you want to call it. We have one component, float button, which give more options on click on it. Is it a better option here? You mean this one here? We have one component, float button. I like having the create list button here. I think what you're saying is maybe you can click on this and it shows you more options. Like you can create a list or create a to-do. I want this to be like a super fast way to create a to-do. And I think I like having the plus button here next to the list. Let me know if that's not what you meant though, Prashant. And also let me know if I'm saying your name wrong. I'm having a crack at it. All right, so if we now jump into our actions, we want one that is called delete. And this is going to be very similar code here. So let's say delete. We don't need to have a payload for a delete action. Set deleting, true and false. Post, we're going to make that a delete request to to-do list. No, actually, we're going to need the ID as well. So we want the UUID of the thing being deleted. Or I think it might actually just be an ID. So let's say ID there. Set deleting equal to true. The API is then going to delete it by going to do list slash, let's make that a template string, slash ID. That shouldn't be ID. That should actually be something that we're pulling through. It looks like it doesn't. I think the word delete is already reserved. Yeah, okay. So we'll have to say like remove. I don't really like that, but is that reserved too? Unexpected keyword. Oh no, that worked. All right, so we got this remove action that sets the deleting. That'll make the spinner thing work for that. Delete, that's not going to need a payload being passed through anymore. Then we get the response. And then we'll have to do a commit. Now my girlfriend's home, so I'm gonna have to leave in a second. So I might not actually have time to finish all of this code. We'll commit delete, which is going to receive the ID of the thing that we are deleting. Cool. I think that's right. So let's go here to our mutations. And what's the fastest, easiest way to do a delete? I think I'm just going to do a filter. So we've got set delete. Change that to deleting. I am talking about floating action button. Yeah, this one here. I think that's what you mean. Or are you saying this should be a floating action button for the list? State deleting. Let's make sure set deleting. Change that to deleting. Set deleting. And now we want another mutation, which is, oh no, not deleting. This will be delete. Export function, and I can't use the word delete. Oh, okay, so we have to change that to remove. So let's come back here. Remove. And change this to, what am I doing again? Remove. Okay, and then that's going to take in the state and the ID of the thing that we are removing. So then I should be able to say return, what about state.entities is equal to state.entities.filter, and then we can take in the current entity, and then basically we want to say entity.id is not equal to the ID that was passed through. Pretty sure that's a way that we can easily just remove it. So let's go back here. The next thing we're going to need to do is make sure that set deleting is going to work. So let's go back to our, what do you call this? Mutation, set deleting. So we're going to need deleting to be sitting on our state. And by default, that's going to be equal to false. Okay, cool. Let's see if that actually works now. I've just written a lot of code without any messing about, like with the code I've been writing. So hopefully it'll work. I think I can just click on that button now. Delete. Oh, that's right. We changed this to remove. So let's try that. I believe we don't need to use mutations. I think so. Not sure. Yeah. So they're trying. I think they are trying to move away from mutations, which makes this kind of hard to teach. But I know that, yeah, Vuex 5, they are moving away from mutations. However, Vuex 5, I'm pretty sure, has not actually been released yet. I'm pretty sure the current version is Vuex 4. And this makes it hard because, you know, what do? You know what? This is actually a good point. I should point this out as I'm teaching it. Oh, not Vuex ORM. What am I doing? Vuex. Yeah, 4.x is actually the current version of Vuex for Vue 3, but Vuex version 5 is being worked on, and you're right, there's actually not going to be any actions anymore. Wait, don't need to use mutations. Is it actions they're getting rid of or mutations? It doesn't matter really what the terminology is. Basically, they're getting rid of the fact that you need actions and mutations. Yeah, so I don't know. Like, you'll notice that in Vuex 4, which is the version that's compatible with Vue 3, we do still have actions, but I might read through these docs again, see what's happening with Vuex 5 before I actually release this video series. That's a good point. Thanks for bringing that up. Thanks for bringing that up, Prashant. All right, so we've now changed this to remove. Let's see if this works now. All right, it might have been the request that didn't work there. Ugh, weird. Oh, okay, this is not receiving the ID. Oh, of course, we need to know what we're deleting. So I like to send the ID of the thing through rather than the thing itself. So what I'll do is I'll say here props, and then I'll say to do, yeah, wait for stable. You're probably right. I'll just mention it. But here's the thing. If in Vuex 4, it works just as well not using both actions and mutations, then frankly, I think I would rather just do it not using one of the two. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just want people to be using the right practices from the beginning. I don't want them to watch this series, and then by the time, in a month's time, Vuex 5 comes out, and it's like, oh crap, all of that stuff is redundant now. So I don't know what the answer is there. I'm glad you brought it to my attention because now I can kind of think about it. All right, so let's say to-do list ID is passed through there. In fact, I'm just going to say ID because it's obvious that it's the to-do list ID because of the name of the component. This is going to be required, absolutely. And let's set the type equal to a number just to enforce that. And now when we delete it, we're going to use the ID. So we'll pass the ID through to delete to-do list. Next thing I want to do is make sure we're actually passing that through. So if we go to main layout, we want to make sure we've got the ID here, and that should be easy to set because it will be sitting on that to-do list.ID. Am I using UUIDs? I can't even remember. How can I test this? Let's go to API-to-do. No, to-do-API. Yep, there it is. Yeah, no, the ID is just a number. Sweet. So let's refresh the page here. My list, delete. And it worked. Awesome. So let's just add all those little finer details now. We want the spinner and we want the disable button. So let's say map getters, and then I'll come in here and we'll say map getters. Whoops. Come back down here. To-do list, and this getter is going to be for removing or deleting to-do list. And let's say here removing, removing. Is that what I call it? What did I call it on the state actually? Deleting. I'm switching between deleting and removing. That's probably bad. I should stick to one. Yeah, you know what? Let's just make it removing all over the app. Removing mutations. Change deleting to removing, and then we'll jump into our actions. We've got remove there, set deleting. So let's say set removing. And then on state, yeah, removing. There we go. Now in our mutation, we've got set removing there as well. Set removing. I think that's everything I need to do. All right, so let's jump back in here. And I can probably just say removing there because it's pretty obvious what that means. And let's change this to remove. Because since we already know that we're on a to-do list button because it's the name of the component itself. So we might as well make things more succinct. We don't need to have all that extra wording in there. And now what we can do is simply say loading is equal to removing, and then disable is equal to removing as well. So let's save that. Oh, what have I done here? Expected Boolean got function for what? Disable. I've done it again, haven't I? Yes, I have. I put it in my methods rather than in computed. So let's whack it in there instead. Sweet. My other example. What? Unknown getter to-do list removing. Oh, did I not make the getter? No, I did not. So let's come down here and make that. And this is a lot of overhead. I don't know how I'm going to teach all of this succinctly. I don't even know if I can. And this is just for the list part of the app. This is why I use stuff like Vuex ORM. Nice, that worked. Now let's refresh the page and see if it's actually gone. And it is. The only problem there is that it's not scoped. Yeah, I kind of hate that. So look, if I'm removing this and I right click on there, it's still spinning because the removing keyword is global, whereas really I think I'd rather have it scoped to the component. See, if I do it this way, let me show you the other way I could do it. I could have a piece of data on here. First, I'll show you the problem. If I right-click and say removing and then instantly right-click on here, that's still going to be spinning because it's in global state. So check this out. Why would you require action variable in state that we can do it from local data? If in another instance open, it will show. Yeah, actually that's exactly the problem I'm talking about right now, Prashant. Like, and I've just realized that like if it's in local state, then we don't end up with that problem anymore. So maybe something like fetching makes sense in a global state, but for something like removing, it means we can't remove two things at once. You know, you end up with that spinning error, that sort of spinning problem. So check this out, everyone. When I click on delete and then right click on here, I still have a spinner on the other one. See that? That's not cool. I then have to like wait for it to show up. So we can fix that pretty easily. We can just say data, return, removing, and we'll set that equal to false by default. And let's just have that on local state instead. Ooh, but it means that we'll have to call this within a method. Oh, sorry, this within a method. It's okay, I'll show you what I mean in a second. So we'll get rid of that. Now, instead of remove, I'll have to say here, for example, handle remove clicked. That's going to accept the ID. In fact, we don't need to accept the ID anymore because it's sitting here in our props. And now we can just say handle remove clicked. And then I can say this dot remove, and then we will send through this dot ID. And now I can say dot then, and take in the response. And let me just go into my actions to check if I actually have the response to play around with. No, I don't. I really should be returning it here. Return response. It's pretty important you do that in your promises. Return your response. Let's do it there as well. There. Yep, sweet. All right, what's the problem it's got? Map getters. Yeah, we're not using that anymore. So now, when that is done, well, first of all, we'll say this dot removing is equal to true when it's clicked. And then I think I can say final or finally. Yeah, there we go. This dot removing is equal to false. So basically, I've moved that variable into local state so that we don't have that problem anymore where the spinner is not scoped to a specific component. So check this out. Delete, right-click, and I've got my own spinner for the other one. Sweet. This works really nicely. Okay, I think that's all I'm going to do for now. This is looking really good. We can create our lists. So it loads the list on when we open the page. We can create one here, my list, make it green, make it a hammer, create. We get the spinner. I can right-click and delete it if I want to, but I can still click on it normally if I like. Right, so we've got the right-click context menu, and I think with a context menu, if you long-click it on a mobile device, then it'll open up. In fact, let's see if we can test that. I'm not sure we actually can. If it knows that it's a mobile device when you do it this way in Chrome. Oh, that's right. I need to fix that. If we go to main layout, for some reason, this toggle left draw thing isn't working. This dot. Oh, okay. That's not dot value anymore. That's from when it was stuck in the options API way of doing things. So let's refresh the page. Now, if I click that, nothing happens. But if I long click it, yeah. Notice that it pops up when I long click it. So it's still going to work on a mobile device. And then I can just delete it like that. This is really wonderful. Okay, so I think that'll do for this video. Yeah, I think that is all I'm going to teach to begin with state. It's so much to teach in a getting started guide, and it's tough because this is kind of the integral part of it all. This is like hooking it up to a backend, and that's what people are actually going to want to learn. But I don't want to scare them away with all this state stuff. So Prashant, I think you're right. Like if we can get rid of either mutations or actions, I don't know which one it is. I think it's I think it's actions they get rid of and just call it mutations then, or maybe they just stick to actions. I don't know. I'll find that out later. But yeah, if we can just simplify this a little bit more, it would be awesome, because look at all this code. I mean, this is why I use something like VueXORM. Sorry, not that code. This code. Because this just feels like so much code for a getting started guide. I don't know. I guess it's not that much. But the other thing is you have to keep jumping from file to file, and it's just not a nice learning experience when you have to jump around from files a lot. So I'm going to see if I can find a way to make this better. Okay, it's the mutations that's deprecated. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, I'm going to see if I can find a way to make this a nicer experience. But hey, thanks everybody for watching. I'm super enjoying this. And if you want to go play around with my API, then feel free to open something like Postman. And if you go to hit this endpoint here, to do-api.quasarcast.com, it has to be .com, then you can actually play around with it yourself. And it's going to set a cookie on your computer, right? So if we come here and say .com, and make sure you set like a label, color, and an icon, that's going to set a cookie on your computer so that now when you do a GET request, the cookie is used to identify you, and you can make API requests to this without doing any setup at all. So check that out, play around with it. Let me know if you find any errors, and thanks so much for watching. I'll see you